I'm a Michigan man through and through. I love playing for the University of Michigan. I love going to the big house and just leaving it all on the field. I love the community. I love interacting with everyone, right? So this was a tough decision. It was a business decision. And I think, I have unfinished business.
Good afternoon, everybody. With the snow falling in Washtenaw County, Dennis Fithian coming at you here on the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, football. And we are ready to get this one underway. You can always join the show in a variety of different ways. We encourage your feedback. If you're on Spaces listening on Twitter and you want to come in and make a point, you can. There's a lot of things going on with Michigan right now. I don't want to overstate it and make it, sound like this is like a day that will always be remembered in the history of Michigan football. But there's a lot of different things going on. Will Michigan ever be in position again with the opportunity that they had last Saturday? Is it just last Saturday? When they had the opportunity to get to the championship game, which was played last night. So you got that to deal with, as you're a football fan. And, you're a college football. College football is the best. And so there's always the realization like, yeah, okay, yeah, great. You had to watch the championship game. And then you're like, now what? Now what am I going to do? Well, you're going to look at a bunch of way too early top 25 lists. You're going to enjoy the coaching carousel. You get recruiting, you get in there, you get basketball to bide your time. And, the NFL playoffs. So there are some things going on. But, man, if college football is your thing, then, there's always a little bit of sadness. So you have to deal with that. Then you have to deal with the head coach in the ongoing saga of Jim Harbaugh. And in the news today that he interviewed for the Broncos job and how that makes you feel. And it's tough. You want to sit there and say, on one hand, if somebody came on here and said, you know what, I want a Michigan man coaching Michigan, I hope he's out of here. I could completely understand that. And then if you're sitting out there and you're saying, look, he's a diva, he's whatever, he's a liar, they say whatever. But, he's a hell of a football coach, and look at what he's been able to do these last 2 years. And then look at the upcoming season, so you deal with, I don't know if you call it baggage. Baggage. You deal with what he's done for these last 2 years, and you just kind of bear it, and then you got to move on. Maybe you should pay attention to it and just wait and see what happens. So all of those things. I mean, there's a lot of conflicting. When you could take one Michigan fan here, very reasonable Michigan fan, and they could be out of their mind, ready for him to, let's fire him. And then you could have that, their next door neighbor who shares season tickets with them saying, hang on, think about, what's going to happen if he does end up going. And I get both of those things. So it's a tough one. It is a tough one. We're going to be talking about that today. What else? Well, they had that big news yesterday. You heard there from Blake Corum right at the beginning of the show. And there's never a better soundbite than this.
Yeah, I'm a Michigan man through and through.
He's a Michigan man through and through. He's
University of Michigan. I love going to the big house and just leaving it all on the field. I love the community. I love interacting with everyone, right? So this was a tough decision. It was a business decision. And I think, I have unfinished business.
He's got unfinished business in Ann Arbor. Thanks to the Rich Eisen show for that audio of Blake Corum. What a great moment that was for Michigan fans yesterday. So you get that emotion, a very pleasant one, very, very good feeling with Blake Corum deciding to come back. Hey, you just think about with the team. If you don't like thinking about the coach and being somewhere else, you just think about the team. This team, and this team has, the quarterback returning both running backs. You start looking and we don't know. We're going to talk about the offensive line, what kind of offensive line they could have coming back, but a pretty good team. And so you balance all that. You're watching what you watched last night, however that made you feel. And then, you're talking about the coach. So this is, one of these days where a lot's going on. It's a lot of those, feelings. And some people are better at dealing with their feelings than, than others. I'll ask you what you thought of TCU's performance. Well, I know what you thought of TCU's performance. What did it mean? TCU's performance last night? We have a bunch of way too early top 25s for next year. I put my own way too early top 25 for 23 together. And then you do have that news with Blake Corum coming back. Over the last 24 hours, we learned that Mazi Smith and Mike Morris are heading to the next level. We'll get to others that are going to make some decisions over the next week. They have until Monday to declare to the NFL draft. So that is quite a few things to weigh in, get in on, and think about. I do have to start with the coach. Put that in air quotes, the head coach at Michigan right now, who did, according to reports, Tom Pelissero conducted a virtual interview yesterday, with Jim Harbaugh for their head coaching job. And let's just go ahead and hear what Tom had to say about it.
Kicked off their head coaching search on Monday by conducting a virtual interview with Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh. The side spoke, I'm told, for over 2 hours. Harbaugh, of course, had put out a statement just last week saying that while things can change, I expect to be enthusiastically coaching Michigan in 2023. But it's no secret Harbaugh has been weighing his NFL options in recent weeks. He now has emerged as a top candidate in Denver. So has Sean Payton, the former.
All right. So there you go. There you go. The coach who last year at this time said it was a one-time thing. And now he interviewed for the Broncos job. So you just have to have your own. I don't know. You have your opinion. I have my opinion. I'll go ahead and give you my opinion. I think Jim Harbaugh should just go. I think he should go to the NFL. I think that his credibility has taken a hit here. And I think he doesn't. It's not that he doesn't want to be here. This is a fallback job for him. He wants to be in the NFL. And so you want to sit around and say, okay, Jim, go ahead, go ahead and do all these interviews and put yourself out there, hoping that you can get a job. But if you can't, well, just come on back here. We'll be happy to take you. And, there's going to be people that are going to be happy to take him, but I'm sitting here and I don't know. Am I cutting off my nose to spite Jim Harbaugh? Maybe. That's just the feeling right now. And then you just see what happens if, it doesn't work. If all the NFL's like, no, we don't want this kind of coach. And so he comes up and he'll have to just come back. Then he get a big fat raise. Everybody be like, yeah, come on back. So I don't know. We'll deal with that when it happens. But right now, Harbaugh and Michigan is in limbo with their head coach. Not a great place to be. It's not a fun. Limbo is not fun. I don't know. Nobody likes limbo, but here we are. That's where we're at with it. Now, that's all I have to say about it. I'm going to see where the people are at with it. Jason is saying that we really did pick a bad week to play an average football game. I think it would have been more of a game with us in there, yet I don't think anyone would have beat Georgia yesterday. Yeah, Jason, that's a pretty even keel level approach. I was thinking the same thing as I watched Georgia score, and just look like, one of the greatest football teams ever, the way they just took TCU and snuffed them out the way they did. And you're right, but you have to go back and you think about Michigan and how in the heck did they lose to this team? How in the heck did TCU put up 51 points on Michigan? I know they threw a bunch of pick sixes and fumbled the ball away. Anyway, but they got Michigan really with all the stuff that everybody always talks about. I have too. I've talked about it, this way and that way about the turnovers and some of the play calling. But the way Michigan, they didn't. It's not like Michigan was beat them on both sides of the line. Like Michigan had a better offensive line, Michigan had a better defensive line. TCU just made some big plays. TCU was the better team. TCU was the better team. They looked like the tougher team. Yeah, they made a lot more big plays. They had a bunch of turnovers too. So I don't know. Michigan did not play for their, the 13 games. Is that how many they played leading up to that? That didn't look like anything like, the team that had played and was coached in those first 13. And yeah, they picked a bad time. Whatever they did in bowl practice to get ready for that one. I don't know if they need to scrap everything there, but whoever is the head coach, who is going to be the head coach, is needs to take a long look at that. Lyle's talking about the officiating last night. I don't know what you're talking about there, Lyle. JT, I miss Michigan football already. What am I supposed to do now? Yeah, I don't know. That's what this show is for. JT, we are here during the season. Everybody waits for the season. We count down the season. I love the season, game by game. We're looking. We're here every day talking about them. But I think this particular show is made for the off season because everybody is excited and talks about and is able to get into all the news with Michigan and college football and everything going on. As the days and weeks and months you get away, it starts getting warmer out and everything else. There's not as much. There's not as many people that can enthusiastically, stay, talking about the team, and that's one of the things that we did last year. And we had more people, I think, watching and listening to the show off season than in season. I'd like people to listen in season too. I'd like this to be the number one show out there. But the point is that the numbers in like July were the best numbers that we had. So, I try to remember that. Like when people are like, "You're talking Michigan football on July 4th?" Like, yeah. Well, July 4th was weird last year because Michigan had a big swell. It was a big week, and they just hit a bunch of recruits like right at July 1st. So there was a lot of fireworks that went on. But yeah, July 15th, we'll be here. We'll be here for you, JT. That's what it's about. We'll talk about it all. I try not to save anything. I don't know what we'll be talking about in July. Last year, there was a lot of name, image, and likeness talk. Almost too much name, image, and likeness talk. But, who knows where it's going to go. Whatever is hot that particular day, that's what we'll be talking about. And Andre says, fortunately, there's YouTube for all the game replays. Well, unfortunately, I have myself all of the games recorded. And you say YouTube, can you get the entire? It used to be that you could get all of the games all the time. Remember when Shea Patterson committed to Michigan, he committed. He was, you knew he was going to be the quarterback, and I would go to YouTube and I watched every Ole Miss game in the summer, and it was a lot of fun. It was like, I'd sit back, and you can only watch so many college football games during the season. And then, here I was watching all of this with Ole Miss and watching Patterson. And that's when I first realized that you could watch all of the games on YouTube like that. But since then, you get less. Like you get game recaps, you get some highlights, but the entire copy for all of them. And maybe there's select games that you can do that. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe if you pay a little bit, you can get them all, which is, there's that possibility as well. But I just remember going back. That was the first time. If I didn't have, the games recorded or anything, I could find them on YouTube, which I thought was really cool. I do remember thinking, man, DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown, he's got some pretty good wide receivers to throw to. That proved out to be true. Also, what proved out to be true was when watching Shea Patterson is that he couldn't throw the ball downfield with accuracy when he was sitting there in a clean pocket. I kept watching, over and over again, and I kept saying, "Oh, how come nobody's talking about this?" And then I even brought it to the air and brought it to Twitter. People were like, "What are you talking about? He's great." I'm like, "No, he's not. Actually, he's not. He's not good. He can't throw the ball down the field. He's not accurate in the pocket." And that I stuck to my guns, and that proved to be true. I didn't want to be right about that, but it ended up being correct when it came down to Shea Patterson on that. JT liked what he heard from Blake Corum yesterday, calling him a true Michigan man, unfinished business indeed. RJ jumping in, talking about Jim Harbaugh. JT saying you don't say you're not going to entertain it, and then the next year you do so. Shaking my head. Yeah, that's one of the bad parts about it. There was, you want to be 100% behind your coach, like your coach, and even if it's, even if you're just buying in, for fun and all of that, like you want to, you want that to be your guy. You want to be able to root for him and all of that. And then when last year happened, there was a lot of people that were telling me, because the year before I was saying, Harbaugh looks like he's trying to get a job. People were like, no, that's not what Jim Harbaugh. That's not what happened. I was like, okay. And then last year, people were like, well, this was like the Harbaugh narrative. Like, he told everybody exactly what was going on. He fulfilled his contract, and then he said he was going to go look. And everybody's like, leave him alone. All right. But so now you don't have that part to lean on, and, that hurts. And I don't know. There's a part of me that says, what kind of credibility does he have as a head coach at Michigan? When now, maybe he's got some kind of wiggle out, and maybe that's what the, catching a level 1 violation was all about. He's got something, where he can wiggle out of it and say, this is why I did it. But what kind of credibility? I know other teams are going to be like, why would you listen to this guy when he tells you something, when he just said something last year, now he does something else. And, Harbaugh will be like, hey, it's business. I don't know what he says. Like, he had some, plausible deniability or whatever else, but what does he got now? What's he going to come up with now? Because what it looks like now is like what you're saying, and I don't know. I'm not going to go. I'm just reading the feedback right now and seeing what people are thinking about Jim Harbaugh, the Michigan man, who interviewed for the Broncos yesterday. What he said, it was a one-time deal. James Joseph said, no man knows the future. You can't be okay with it and say it doesn't affect recruiting. That's from Lyle. Yeah, we talked about the recruiting angle. I think the part with the recruiting angle, of course, everybody on the other side is going to be saying, you can't trust this guy for anything. And what are you going to say as a Michigan fan? Oh, yeah, you can. No, you can be like, oh, well. What's the best angle for Jim Harbaugh if he comes back to Michigan? Well, no NFL teams wanted him. So, he's in the good, he's all ours. Hey, he couldn't do the job that he wanted, so he's going to do this one. That's not a very good slogan. I don't know what the slogan is. We'll have to work on that if Harbaugh comes back. No, I couldn't coach the NFL. And yeah, I rolled out a lot of things that sounded good. But who does? The NFL obviously has it better than me. But, when it comes down to, I don't know. I'm at a loss for that. Again, we'll have to work on that part. Strike one, strike two. No, I don't know. We're working. We're trying. We'll see what happens. Rico says he honestly doesn't care. He's going to leave next year, if not this year. So let's find the next guy. Maybe. I saw a story from The Athletic, and I didn't read it. There's nothing against Austin Meek, who I enjoy his coverage of Michigan. He works for The Athletic, but his headline was, so what if this is a yearly occurrence? Basically, that's paraphrasing it, but that's basically what he was saying. Like, yeah, Harbaugh, flirts around the NFL, then he comes back to Michigan. So what? Well, so what? And you could say, so the fans get a little bit wrapped up in it, but then everything's fine, and then you just get back to it. And I think that's his point. Like, you have some uneasiness for a couple days, and you feel like the guy's gone, but then he comes back, and then everything's fine. But is really everything fine? I don't think it's fine where, this time around, like you had a lot of other people saying things like this. How do you guys trust Harbaugh? Like, what a hypocrite, all these things. Now, all these things that everybody was saying about him, they're very hard to defend him. Like, okay, hey, so what? He's a liar. So what? He's a hypocrite. So what that it's about Harbaugh and it's not about Michigan. So what? He's not a Michigan man. So what? That he wanted just to coach in the NFL and this is a fallback job. So what? He's a good coach. I think that's the line. Hey, he's a good coach. It's a business now. You know what Jim Harbaugh is thinking about right now? I want everybody to think about this for a second. You know what Jim Harbaugh is thinking about right now? Jim Harbaugh. That's who he's thinking about. He's thinking about himself. He's not thinking about Michigan. He's thinking about himself. That's who he's thinking about. Okay, we'll take a few more in the feedback and then we'll move forward. Here's AOKO, who I thought I was possibly watching a podcast of his recently. And if he was sitting behind the wheel of his car, he was talking Michigan. I was like, but it didn't say AOKO. It was close to that, though. And I thought, this could be him. And, I just have that picture there, so I'm not 100% sure. But it was a good pod. So if it was yours, I liked it. Thumbs up. He says, wasn't just Harbaugh flirting with the NFL? Wait, wasn't just Harbaugh flirting with the NFL affecting recruiting? It was losing both of our coordinators, offensive and defense, also losing defensive line coach Nua, and it affected the 23 class. Well, there's a good point. It for sure, I think that McDonald, he had eyes on the NFL, so he was gone anyways. But it totally got rid of Josh Gaddis, no matter what you think of him. I mean, he won the Frank Broyles Award, and then Harbaugh was gone. But nobody thought he was gone, and then he was gone. And then down in the football office, everybody was like, okay, who's taking that empty seat? And Gaddis was like, I want that empty seat. And Michigan was like, you're not getting that empty seat. You're not getting it. You're not getting it. You had your hand in a cookie jar, and, you screwed it up. So you're not going to. And so then he left. It's a good point. Who knows? I don't know for sure how it affected recruiting. I said this yesterday. I'll say it again. Hey, okay, you might not have been here. You might not have listened to the show yesterday. I think, it's my opinion, yours could be right. And I know that rivals and, media has said, oh, yeah, look at this has affected the Michigan football recruiting class this year. I think that name, image, and likeness, it was 95% name, image, and likeness what affected Michigan's recruiting this year. And I'll leave, 4 or 5% out there for, Harbaugh flirting around, having his hand on Minnesota's leg, and people saying that he's gone, even though he promised. Oh, he promised. He looked everybody in the eye and said, he told Mitch Albom, if Ward will have me, I'll be back. This was just a one-time thing. There's a lot of bad parts about it. The one part about it is like you say, oh, these, I said this to a lot of people over the last year when I said, he said he was staying around in Ann Arbor. He promised. He's a Michigan man. And my friends that aren't Michigan fans or, my friends elsewhere are like, you guys are buying this hook, line, and sinker. All coaches lie. He's just lying to you. And I was like, but Harbaugh's a little different. No, he's not. That's what they said. You take a coach's promise and 25 cents and you'll get a hamburger. That's what you'll get. And they were all proven right, which is, that's a tough part when it comes down to it, And I think a lot of people don't even want to give their feedback because they're probably in a bad spot. And I get that. You don't want to say something too positive because the guy is out there, sort of feels like he's cheating on you. That's what it feels like. And you don't want to say to hell with him either because there's a part of you that wants him to come back. You're stuck. You're stuck in this limbo. Troy, he wants the NFL, so he will eventually go, if not this year, the next. Yeah, well, I guess that's where we're at. Huh? He's either going to go or this year or next year. So that's it. Thinking about last night. Let's get to that. I see some people weighing in on last night. And how you felt about watching the game against TCU. And KO says the both line played their worst games against TCU. I agree. And why is that? I mean, do we have a theory? If somebody asked me, why did Michigan defensive line and offensive line play their worst game against TCU? I have to give credit to TCU, but then I was watching them get manhandled. Part of it, and this always happens, and there's a little bit of a point to it, but there's a point on the other side too. And the point is, playing off of last night's or always last week's results doesn't mean that that's exactly what would have happened, to Team A. Well, they have transfer property, I think they call that. Because there's a lot of people saying, "Oh, if you think, Georgia, pushed around TCU pushed around Michigan. What do you think Georgia would have done?" And there's some truth to that. I don't hear any Michigan fans saying, "Oh, if we just had a shot, to get in there against Georgia, we'd have been able to do something." I think if there's one thing that you can at least try to make yourself feel better about, it's like you can say, "Look, Ohio State had them. Ohio State had them, right, but it wasn't for that timeout by Smart and, the big time comeback and the missed field goal at the end. Ohio State, I mean, they had that game. They were, whatever those, they get those indicators. ESPN does one. A lot of people do them. Ohio State was like a 95% plus a chance to win that game until Smart called that timeout. That's not in a good position. That's in a great position. But then you say, well, yeah, but Ohio State matched up because they could really throw the ball. And, I get that. And, it wasn't a good matchup for Michigan because Michigan, relied so much on running the ball. And that's true. I'm not making the case that Michigan would have beat Georgia last night. I'm just still going back and asking, how you felt. And those things are running through your head while you're watching the game last night. Account 22 is talking about Ohio State fans, and he's saying OSU should be ranked ahead Michigan when they lost by 22 at home. Yeah. Well, good luck with that. I mean, I don't know, out of postseason rankings, I know it's maybe it's still a little bit too raw for me, to be, thinking about, trolling or going back at some Ohio State fan because they want to be ranked number 3. Hey, we're number 3. All right. But I get it. I mean, you got to start getting ready for next year. Might as well just start, going at Ohio State right now. I saw a bunch of Michigan State fans. Oh, boy, they loved it. They loved it. Oh, yeah. They want it. They are playing that card, too. Oh, yeah. Ohio State should be ranked there. So there you go. The other thing I thought about that game last night is that I think Michigan would have beat Ohio State if they played them a second time. And Ohio State fans, I'm sure, are thinking that they were going to win a national championship if they would have had that kick at the end or if they could have done about 5 or 6 different things towards the end of that game and just hung on and beat Georgia, that they feel like they would have beat TCU. I completely understand that. And I think if somehow Michigan would have found a way, I mean, here they were still with a chance late in that game after playing, their worst game of the year, then they still had a chance to, pull it off. Even the last drive, if they would have called the, the stupid targeting thing, it would have been a miracle. But if Michigan went on that game, and then it wouldn't have been a miracle to see Ohio State, Michigan, we could be sitting here talking about them being the national champ. But, you don't have to play that many ifs on that. if Ohio State was 95% chance to win that game, hangs on to beat Georgia, and somehow if Michigan didn't play their worst game of the year, Michigan would have beat Ohio State, I think. And we'd be sitting here talking about a parade. But no. Okay. Let's we'll get some others in here. Account 22 is still on this number 3 thing. He's got he's looking at those way too earlys, having Michigan in the preseason top 25, having Ohio State in front of him. LOL. Well, speaking of that, I looked through those way too early top 25s myself. And it's funny, like, as much as people are like, you know how many times we'll get to August and you'll be talking with college football with somebody, and like you start looking at the schedule and you're like, oh yeah, we got 2 top 10 teams playing here, and look at there in the non-conference, you got a top 25 matchup. That'll be cool. And then you'll invariably hear somebody say, rankings don't mean anything. They shouldn't start the rankings until October. Some kind of variation of that. And yet, the way too early rankings are out the day after the championship game in both basketball and football, and people eat it up. And every single person does it. That's funny to me. The other funny thing is I had it for a second, and then I just lost it. The funny thing that people say. Oh, and every talk show does this. They say, let's have an overreaction Sunday, where you're really talking to sports fans like you just want to react. You don't want to overreact, but people like overreaction. They like wildness. And yet you hear so many people like, it's an overreaction. People love overreactions. Every show. Was there a show that doesn't do? This one doesn't. Overreaction Monday. Whenever I hear that, I'm like, this is so trite. Everybody does it. But hey, everybody does it way too early, top 25 too. So I'm on board. I'm going to start doing some just in. I'm doing an overreaction Monday next year as well. I'll just have overreaction Monday anyways, even when there's not games being played, so I can overreact. All right, here's what some of these professionals, these gurus, had to say. The Athletic, Stuart Mandel, covers college football for said publication. He's got Georgia 1. He's got Michigan 2, followed by Ohio State. Maybe Account 22 will like him now. LSU 4 and Bama 5. I like Nick Saban being up on the round table last night. You had old David Pollock, who's a Georgia alum, sitting right next to old Saban, and he said something to the effect that Georgia just can't be stopped now. They own college football. They got so young. This thing's not stopping now. And Saban's just looking at him like, dirty. It was good. So that's what Bama fans were thinking too. Bill Bender, he's been on this show from the Sporting News, the college football guru. He's got Georgia 1. He's got Bama 2, Michigan 3, Ohio State 4, Tennessee 5. We've got others. Pat 40 for SI. Oh, he hates Michigan. He's got Michigan 2. Georgia, Michigan, LSU. He's got Penn State in his top 5 at 4, Washington. Mark Schlabach from ESPN. Oh, here's what Account 22 is talking about. He's got the Buckeyes at number 2, ahead of Michigan. How do you do that? How do you even come to that come to that selection when you look at the teams? He's not being honest. No, I mean, that's just kind of the things that come into your head. Michigan, top 3 preseason. Florida State, hadn't seen their name. And Bama. Also looking at the other various publications, Athlon, Pro Football Focus, USA Today, they all had Michigan preseason number 2 next year behind Georgia. Everybody had Georgia. Now here's my way too early top 25 for the year 2023. And I have to tell you this, I redid it. I had taken Georgia out of the number 1 spot because I'm thinking, look at all those players that they lost. They lost their quarterback, and they lost a ton of talent. And then I was out walking today, and I was thinking about it. It was running through my mind, and I was thinking about that game last night. I was thinking about Brock Bowers and how how he looks like he's the best player in all of college football, and all of that. And then I thought, last year they had lost everything, and they were right back, and here they are. And so I said, I really can't take Georgia out of the top spot. I had dropped them down to like 3 or 4 initially, and then I thought the better of it. And with that tease, I get to my top 5, my way too early top 25. Before I do that, I want to tell everybody that you have an opportunity here to know everything about what's going on with Michigan before everyone else. Recruiting, coaching searches, who's going to be the next Michigan head coach, all of those kind of things. You can be in tune with all of it right now by being a member of the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. We're talking all day, all night about the Maize and Blue or the Maize and Blue Review on the Den, on the posting board. It's a lot of fun. We'll see you there. Now, my top 25 for 20, or top 5, way too early, for 23. A lot of numbers in there. At number 5, I did put Ohio State in there. I don't know about the quarterback, but I do know if Marvin Harrison Jr. decides to come back, and they've got the other wideout that's pretty good too. They got 2 or 3 more wideouts that are pretty good. Travion Henderson, who is banged up, he's coming back. If he doesn't transfer or whatever, hit the portal, that's pretty good. That's a lot of talent. I've got Ohio State inside my top 5. At number 4, I like the Washington Huskies, mostly because of their quarterback, the southpaw, Michael Penix Jr. And I think this Kalen DeBoer is a pretty good head coach. I like what I saw from them watching their bowl game against Texas and some of the returning skill players that Penix will have at his disposal. I thought about USC, and I know that they have the Heisman Trophy winner, but their defense is so bad, and they're so soft. And it was the most, one of the most, I'm not a USC fan. It was one of the most embarrassing displays by a defense that I ever saw in that Pac-12 championship game, where they were playing like patty cake with the Utah team. Like, they're really coming into the big. They're going to be the softest Big Ten team of all time. You get paid good money there to go. Caleb Williams is great and everything, but I got Washington in front of USC at number 4. I like when I can take a shot at USC. Every chance I get, I take a shot. There was one. There's my chance. At number 3, I put Brian Kelly's LSU Tigers. I know that he can't talk like maybe that country. I want to talk to my family, but he got a pretty good quarterback in Jaden Daniels. He really came on at the end of the year. And if you look, it says they're bringing back their entire offensive line. You know that they're bringing in great recruits down there. The Bayou. I like LSU. It's preseason top 3. Number 2, Michigan. You get McCarthy coming back, Corum and Edwards. Are there a better triumvirate than this that I have on the screen of J.J. McCarthy, Blake Corum, and Blake Edwards? Or Donovan Edwards? Dono, Lightning and Lightning. J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, you do have Caleb Williams and you do have Penix Jr. How many other quarterbacks would you take right now if you're talking about best quarterbacks in college football way too early? Let's rank them. Who else you putting up there? What about Manning down there, the true freshman? I'm going to have to wait and see him actually take a snap. Who else? Quinn Ewers? Nobody in the Big Ten. Georgia ain't got a quarterback. We'll see. I know Bama has got this dual threat guy. We'll see. Hooker's gone. McCarthy's a top 3 quarterback. He might be number 2 behind Caleb Williams. That's where I'll slot him in right now. And these 2 were the top tandem in college football heading into last year. And, they just went out there and were awesome. So, The hype with Michigan is real. And with these two guys, let's go. And the number one, I did put Georgia number one. Sorry, I guess I didn't put their. Oh yeah, there they are. For some reason, I just skipped ahead. Georgia, Brock Bowers, back to back. They deserve to be there. And they proved that they can lose a lot and be right back in the driver's seat. And impressive performance last night. Blah blah blah. Georgia number one. All right, let's look at some of the feedback and see where folks are at. Slogan, can't beat Ryan Day in the NFL. Slogans for Michigan, I like it. M Go Blue, that's a nice little moniker to have when you're getting into a show like that. Got to tell you, old M Go Blue. He helped our program for sure, but Michigan is bigger than Harbaugh. That's right. No coach, no player, bigger than the program. And I do think that when it comes down to Harbaugh, I think right off the bat with the emotions being so high, there'll be a lot of things that are said. And you can say, well, people don't mean him. I think they might mean him at the time. Like this guy, all these kind of things. It would be really easy for me to make up some things like, slamming Harbaugh out the door. And it'll happen. But I think that in 10, 15, 20, 25 years when, old Harbaugh comes back, maybe he'll have a cane. And when they celebrate these last 2 years, the Big Ten championships, and, they'll give him a little golf clap. Welcome back, Jim Harbaugh. But that's it. He did. He did a nice job these last 2 years. That's not really the question. It's just about him. It's about him being like every other college football. And, there was the thought that maybe he wasn't. And I know it sounds silly now. It sounds really silly saying that. Well, are you going to trust this man? You're going to take him for his word. And so many people were. He's a Michigan man. I'll tell you where I take the L. And it just happened last week. You could have watched this show. If somebody watched the show, they'd say, this guy's all over the place. One day, he's over there saying, good riddance, Harbaugh's as good as gone. It's walking like a duck. And then the next day, he's like, he's back. That was me last week. It wasn't a great week for me. But I took the L when I saw Harbaugh sign his name under those who stay will be champions. That was pretty telling to me. You take Schembechler and you use his most famous saying and you sign your name underneath it as the ultimate Michigan man. You're coming back. He fooled me. I took that and I ran with it. I saw it. I thought, could a guy who his whole life, this is the guy that he loves, the coach. He's going to use his words and sign his name underneath. And then he's going to take off. Are you crazy? You guys don't know me. You guys don't know Jim Harbaugh. And I didn't know if I knew him or not, but, I'm just watching it. And when I saw that, I thought that was the biggest thing ever. And, he got me. He got me. I'm taking the L on that one. I didn't know. Richard watched that game last night and realized what a missed opportunity it was this year. Yeah, I was thinking that too, Richard. Jim should only be brought back for a single year while we line up his replacement. That's from Rico. Yeah, I don't know, Rico, Ayo. But if we get a horrible coach, it will set the program back another 5-10 years. It's a risky decision. Yeah, it's out of their hands. You're at the mercy of the emperor right now. The Emperor Harbaugh, is deciding if he is going to go to the NFL, if somebody will take his talents in the league. And if not, the Emperor will be back with a gigantic raise and a minuscule buyout because that's what the Emperor wants. So you're right. Really doesn't matter. We're just giving our thoughts, our opinions, and spilling our guts with our feelings. And yeah, my feeling is he should just go ahead and go. But yeah, doesn't matter. I don't think he's, he didn't care what Michigan fans think right now. He's thinking about Jim Harbaugh, and he may be able to get an NFL job. Maybe all those suckers will turn him down. He'll have to come back and say, okay, I'll take $12 million a year from Michigan. I'm really happy to be back. Is that what he's going to say? What's he going to say? I mean, that's the part that I'm having a hard time with. What's he going to do? Stand up there and be like, yeah, that was all just, I can't even come up with it. That's the part that I can't get through. Once the cat's out of the bag here, after the one-time thing, how's he going to stand up there? When's the next time he's going to be available? Is he going to talk to John Jansen on his pod, and these guys going to go over a spring preview? John going to ask him, Coach, I'm going to have to really, fire a hard ball at you, okay? Here, okay. Coach, this was a tough decision. What's he going to say? There's nothing against John. John does a fine job. But, hey, it's a Michigan pod. Okay. Carolina shut down Harbaugh after the talk. Yeah, maybe they'll shut him down. Maybe they come in and say, Jim, we're not really going to give you full control. You're a little bit long in the tooth. Trent Baalke says you're the worst person to work with of all time. You lied to your team, to Michigan fans. Why are we taking you here again? And Harbaugh's going to be, because I'll get you. I'll get you to the playoffs. That's why. You got to make a little bit of a deal. Let's just be honest. This isn't literal. You make a deal with the devil. That's what you're doing. That's what's happening. That's the way it looks. That's how it's quacking, all those kind of things. Yeah, there's a lot of speculation. That's what's going on. I'm speculating myself. What else am I left to do? Let's just wait and see how it plays out. Well, you do have Blake back. Let's look at some of these. You got Blake back, and that was incredible news. And, I know somebody was just talking about the next 5 or 10 years could look terrible and all that. But, and sure, that's the rub. Well, ticked off at Harbaugh for him having his hand on the NFL's knee here while he's got a contract with Michigan, and he told you, I'm going to use the relationship. He's married. Jim Harbaugh is married. He's got his kitchen pass last year, and then he said, "That's it. That was my one time. I'm going to be totally faithful. I will not go out there." And then here he is cheating again. I'm like, here we are. There you are. You got your old kitchen pass last year, and now here you are coming back one more time. Once an NFL interest, always an NFL interest. I mean, who's fooling whom? I feel like I do have egg on my face. I do. I wanted to believe the old last year one-time thing, but when I saw that those who stay will be champion, I bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. So you got some other guys here. Blake is coming back. We know that. It's great. Guy's awesome. If you're feeling down and you're feeling blue, just play this.
I'm a Michigan man through and through.
Play that. You want to feel good about Michigan? Let's listen to a little Blake Corum.
Big house and just leaving it all on the field. I love the community. I love interacting with everyone, right? So this was a tough decision. It was a business decision. And I think, I have unfinished business.
Unfinished business. Could that be? He's won the Big Ten for 2 years in a row. I'll speak for him. Here's Blake's unfinished business. Heisman Trophy. National championship. Those are two things that Blake's looking for. Take it to the end. Got a couple guys that can help him out here. Let's find out You have the deadline Monday for the underclassmen to declare for the NFL draft. Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter. There was I think I'm going off of memory here. I could screw this up. So if I miss it and somebody says, you don't know what you're talking about, you might be right. Zinter had an Instagram or a Twitter. I think it was Twitter. And then he had an emoji where Blake was, talking about running it back, and Zinter was through like the contemplating emoji. So he's thinking it over about possibly returning as well. Michigan's got this collective that people are adding to every day for the guys that are mulling over coming back, and they get that money. Trevor Keegan, when he was driving around, I don't know what it was, the white Lamborghini last year, and I don't remember the exact quote, but he was basically like, we're doing really well. So, these guys, whatever their NFL grades are, normally guys just go. But you have name, image, and likeness now. And this was always like, Michigan, instead of playing the money up front game, they were going to play if you're good and stay around, the Michigan will hook you up. Well, boy, these two guys right here should be hooked up. Can you imagine bringing back both of these guys? I'll tell you what, if you could give me Keegan, Zinter, and Jenkins, the Broncos can have Jim Harbaugh. Now, Jenkins, you could say, what the hell's going on here? He just he was quoted down a couple days before the Fiesta Bowl saying he was going to be back. Well, he might have saw that collective and been like, maybe I want to get my piece of that pie, saying that I could go. And, maybe he got a positive grade that came back and said, look, we'll take you. We'll take you in the 4th round. I don't know. Like, that's the thing. We used to know, like, sometimes guys get an itch and then they get an agent and somebody buys them a suit. But they can do all those things now. Like, okay, go get yourself a suit. Go get yourself a new car. Tell them you want a couple stacks of cash. And then say you want more to come back to Michigan. It's all good now. So those are the ones that we're waiting on over the next couple days. In fact, let's take a look right now, because the way things are moving in Michigan circles, you wait about a half hour and you get to do another show because people are talking about something else, and it's just happened. Here's somebody that's putting up a Harbaugh quote from 2022. I'll read it to you. I called Ward and I asked him if he wanted me to be the head coach. And he said, yes, 100%. And I said, okay, then that's what I want to do. And I told him, Ward, this will not be a reoccurring theme every year. This was a one-time thing. Here endeth the lesson from today. I don't know. How do you come back from this? Again, how? You just say, I was just playing the game. I'm like every other college coach out there. You can't really believe what I'm saying. That's how I felt at the time. Believe me now. I mean, it's a hard, that credibility, and maybe it doesn't, like, maybe the kids out there, it doesn't matter. People are just talking. People say something, next day they change their mind. Your word, just all BSing out here. I really don't know. I really don't know how he comes back from that. Yeah, that stuck out to me too. But other than that, I'm not really seeing any of this. No. We're talking about Michigan getting robbed because of the officials. We've been over that ourselves. There's people out there that like that. Okay. So we'll wrap this up with some good feedback. If you did not know, you're listening or watching this or listening back to this podcast, it's all available out there everywhere you get your podcast. We always encourage you. It helps when you rate and subscribe and hit the thumbs up and comment. All those things help. And we are here every day, and I plan on being here every day for right now. Where am I going? I'm not going to the Broncos. Broncos podcast. Broncos podcast calls me up and says, how about you do a daily pod for the Broncos? I'll be like, what am I going to talk about? Russell Wilson for all off season? Hey, Jim, let Russ cook. It just doesn't, it's not doing it for me. Russ and Jim, what a combo. What's Jim going to do with Russ? Will Jim let Russ cook? That's as far as I'm getting. I got one show, one topic. What else? They don't have any picks. Jim's going to just put his hands over the Broncos. They play in a tough. The AFC West is tough. I got news for Harbaugh. The Broncos are finishing in last place next year. I got news for Harbaugh. If somehow the Broncos, if he takes that job, I'm betting the Broncos to come in last place. Who are they beating? Maybe the Raiders. I don't know. I'm still betting them. That's not the way to bet. I try to give gambling advice out there. Betting, reactionary, emotional, that is not the way to be spending your hard-earned money. Don't take that one from me. Erase that. I don't want you saying, I'm betting the Broncos to come in last too. Now, betting them not to come in first or second, I definitely would bet that right now. And that's not emotional. Let's see what Andres is saying. He's got some names to consider. He calls it names floating around. Josh Heupel. Shane Beamer. 2 good years at SEC programs, to me, doesn't indicate prolonged success at Michigan. I got an opinion on both of those guys. I think there's 0% chance that Heupel or Beamer coach at Michigan if Harbaugh ends up in Denver. 0% chance. Yeah, they've had nice years. Yeah, Heupel's, I don't have anything against Josh Heupel or Shane Beamer. But neither of those guys are coaching at Michigan. Doug asks if I can name 3 recruits that did not come to Michigan because of the Vikings interview of Jim Harbaugh. I can't, Doug. No, I can't. And even if I could name 3, 3 guys that may have said that and then it ended up going elsewhere, my guess is that they're just saying that because they took money to go somewhere else, and they can't say that. That's the only thing they can't say. They can take the money. They just can't say that they're taking the money. So, no, there's a point to that. What's this Urban Meyer stuff? He has street cred and plenty of recruiting drip. I don't know why we're talking about Urban Meyer. People bring his name up, like with Michigan. There's another one. There's a 0% chance that's happening. Even if you wanted to, and there's 0% chance that he wants to come in, and there's 0% chance that Michigan wants him. So he's a 0% fit. And after what happened with Jacksonville, no, that's just not happening. I don't care. And you could say that's going to be a problem with Michigan. It's not a problem with Michigan. I don't know if there's anyone else that automatically is excluded from getting the job. But Urban Meyer is. I don't think there's anybody else that's automatically excluded from getting the job. But Urban Meyer is, after he got kicked out of the NFL, there's 0 chance. Andre's talking about more coaches and names. Fleck, Aranda, Heupel, Beamer could get it done like Jim. Urban could, whether you like it or not, been down that road. Look, Aranda, here's the one thing about coaches. And this is not something that you should die. You should die on this hill. I don't myself, because I put out a list of coaching candidates that I would interview, my favorites for the job. I did this last week, and one of them was David Shaw. And David Shaw doesn't meet the parameters that I'm just going to put out there. And that parameter is coming off a successful season. Like 2 years ago, when Michigan went through the pandemic and only won 2 games, Jim Harbaugh wanted the Chicago Bears job. He didn't have an agent. He didn't want to put his name out there because he didn't want a bunch of people saying, what the hell is this guy won? He went to the college game, couldn't win a damn thing, can't beat Ohio State. He's 0-5, would have been 0-6. He won 2 games. He looks haggard. He looks old. Nobody's hiring this guy. So Jim Harbaugh didn't put his name out there. But Jim Harbaugh wanted that Chicago Bears job. And if the Bears wouldn't have made the playoffs, I think the Bears may have given him the job. But it wasn't exactly like the Bears, they would have been giving him the job based on what he did when he was with the 49ers. But still, other teams were looking at it like, what? We're going to pay a gigantic buyout and bring a guy in that's won 2 games? But then you've had the last 2 years, and that's why, he's hot. Dave Aranda, if Jim Harbaugh would have went to the Vikings last year, Dave Aranda's name, what he was able to do down there in the Big 12, what he was able to do with Baylor, his name was on fire. Everybody wanted to talk with Aranda. Let's bring this guy in. He's awesome. But Aranda didn't have a good year. He didn't look so hot right now. That doesn't mean you shouldn't talk to him and automatically, but it's a big deal with the fans. And being able to sell yourself to the fans, whether you like it or not, it's a big deal. Like if David Shaw, who I think is an excellent coach, and I would like for Michigan to interview and have him possibly take the job. I think he would be great. The people out of David Shaw, what's he? Look, you're going to have to deal with that automatically. What's he won? Fleck was on my list too. So, Fleck's was on my list, and Shaw. I told you those were the top 2 guys. And the guy that won the national championship last night is the offensive coordinator for Georgia. Monken was also on that list. Those were my top 3. Let's I'm not putting any more Urban Meyer thoughts up there. I don't know who talks about. Everybody's talking about Urban Meyer. So what happens is I think there's other people out there, like, shows like this, and they're talking about Urban Meyer because people, it gets back to the way too early, and also being let's be over obnoxious Mondays. Oh no, overreactive Mondays. An overreaction and obnoxious selection is talking about Urban Meyer getting the Michigan job. Sure, everybody has opinion on it. Sure, everybody hates him. And then sure, you're going to have people like, he's a winner. But I'm not sitting here and every day talking about Urban Meyer. I'll go crazy. I think I am going crazy today. Jason always levels it out. Just good. I put his feedback up on the screen, sight unseen, and I know that it's going to have a calming effect on me. Let's read this one. Jason says, at this point, I will use one of my father's best quotes. Do it or get off the pot, Jim. With the returning talent we have, we need consistency in leadership positions for these kids. That's a good saying. My dad used to say, don't bet teasers and parlays. I said I wasn't going to talk about that anymore, and that didn't stop anybody. You can't constantly wonder if Dad's coming back with the milk. I think the milkman's got something going on here. Dad went out for smokes and never came back. Let's see what Eddie is saying. I never said Michigan didn't gain yardage on the 3-3-5 defense. I said he fired that team up, then spotted them 2 pick sixes. Yeah, look, a lot of the offseason, like last year, was talking about name, image, and likeness. A lot of this offseason is going to be complaining about the 3-3-5. This is just starting. I noticed as I was watching the game last night that I don't like the color purple. I never have. And now I've got even a better reason not to like it ever. I don't have anything purple. I mean, I like Prince back in the day, but I don't have anything purple. And frogs, it's not like I like frog legs. Frogs are fine. No, they're not. I don't like frogs, and I don't like purple. And it's going to be something that we're going to talk about a lot this offseason. The 3-3-5 and what happened against Michigan. What happened in the semifinal in the Fiesta Bowl? Why did Jim Harbaugh use all of his time to run a trick play? And the first series, when he got down there, when Michigan's identity, their bread and butter, I think it traces back to that Ohio State game and that jump pass. I'm going to call it ridiculous because it was so out of character. It was so ripe to just blow up in Michigan's face, and it worked. Khalil Mullings, how many carries did he have up to that point as a running back? 3, 2, I don't know, something like that. Not too many. He'd been playing linebacker. And so Michigan, completely off script and out of character, throws a jump pass, and it worked. And Michigan is the greatest pass ever. And I was like, whoa, that was the craziest thing ever, but it worked. And everybody loved it. Hell, I made it in my drive of the year, one of the cover. But I think, you do that, and I think you get a little bit, I don't know, say intoxicated with trickery. Oh, what can we draw up now? That'll be just so crazy. How about the Philly special? Truth be told, J.J. McCarthy should have audibled out of that play when he realized that, or hopefully he realized that TCU was in his zone when he put a man in motion, but he didn't. I don't know why he didn't do that. I also don't know why he threw the 2 pick sixes, considering it had only had 3 interceptions all year long. Sure enough, one of them was against Purdue the week before, but that wasn't all that bad of a pass. Indiana trying to force one in the end zone. What was the other one? Penn State? I don't even put that one on him. It was a deflection. The guy was really good with the ball, really took care of it. Why he didn't audible out of the Philly special? I don't know. Did they have too much bowl preparation and thought, wow, we went with the craziest play ever against Ohio State in Columbus, and it worked. Let's dial up something else. I don't know. Maybe coaches, they get too much time on their hands and they, feel like they just got to do crazy things. We really are better with the ranking disrespect. I don't care at all. Rico. You don't care about Michigan finishing third. I don't care about Michigan finishing third either. Hey, like down the line, you want to, hey, Michigan finished third. Getting to the college football playoff was nice. If Ohio State was ranked in like Michigan State fans want, and Ohio State fans, are really all like, we're number 3. Because, they played a game that was really close against Georgia, and Michigan lost to a team that was humiliated last night. And so, they want to put Ohio State. I don't know. I wouldn't have cared about that. I wouldn't be sitting here like, oh my God, Michigan, the institution, college football really is against Michigan. Like so many people, I saw somebody saying that again. People are against Michigan. I don't care. I don't care about the ranking. Ohio State doesn't have a quarterback. Schlabach is delusional because he put Ohio State in front of Michigan. I do like the Account 22 has this in them. And I think this is a good thing to have, Account 22. You let things bother you where, and you stay on it. Disrespect. You don't like this writer, and you've got a long memory about it. You'll bring it up. If people are riding against Michigan, it's Michigan versus everyone. Account 22's putting him on the list. He's never going to take anything that Schlabach ever says. He'll automatically say, this guy's some Buckeye hack. I don't know. Maybe I should try to, maybe I'll send him an email and say, hey, you want to come on and tell me why you put Ohio State in front of Michigan? I'll do it. I'll write that down so I remember to do. I think that would be fun. Schlabach. Get him on the pod. I'll learn how to say his name. I'm not 100% sure how to say it, but if he agrees to come on, I'll get him on. Count 22 wants Harbaugh to get 120 now and get it done. That's where we're at. I want people to make a prediction that if Jim Harbaugh comes back, will I be sitting here praising the coach at times during the offseason? Will I let this water go under the bridge? And will I then look at the coach and hold him in high regard? When will that happen? Will that happen? Or will I always look at him and be like, Jim? As that's how I feel right now. And I don't want to be wishy-washy. I want to stick to my guns. Let's see. We continue to take your calls. We continue to, we got a request. Look at this. I've been sitting here the whole time. It's Big Ten Troy, who, if I am doing this right, I can get him on here and he can talk just like anybody else. Let's see if he's still there. Are you there, Big Ten champs? Are you there? I might be doing something wrong.
Hey, Dennis, how you doing?
Hey, I'm pretty good, man. What's going on?
Nothing, man. Good to speak to you again, man. Well, my thing is, I've been critical on Harbaugh for years, and the whole thing is this: it's like a girlfriend that just continuously cheats on you, and you take her back, and she does the same thing again. This man said last year that he was done with the NFL, and a year later, we're right back in the same boat we were last year. What do you think happens if he comes back? It's going to be like this next year. It hurts recruiting. I mean, he has no integrity. And, I mean, how am I supposed to get upset when a guy that's never won a national championship in 8 years, has a losing record against Ohio State, a 500 record against Michigan State? I mean, besides these last 2 years, the first 6 years, he's done nothing. And it hurts recruiting. And it just wears on you and wears on you. If you want to be here, let's get another deal done and just stay here. I mean, you're a legacy. People love you at Michigan. You're hurting your legacy by doing this. I don't understand it. He's got Blake coming back with Edwards and McCarthy. He's got a good defense. I mean, he's going to be a top 5 team coming out next year. And if he comes back, they should beat Ohio State. They should win the Big Ten and go undefeated.
They should. Let me just jump in. I mean, all of the things that you're saying, I don't think anybody can dispute any of them except the part where what has he really done? He hasn't really won anything. It's just been these last 2 years. And you do, if you put it all to a side, and I'm mostly on your side today. That's how I feel about it as well. I think you do go back and you say, I don't know. I mean, how can you take anything that he would say to heart or believe? Because he has proven now that he'll say something and he'll go back at it. And to me, that's a huge thing for him to overcome. But the part about, I don't know that he's lost recruits necessarily. I do think that other coaches will say, why would you go and listen to anything Jim Harbaugh says? Obviously, he lied. So I think that will be completely used against him now. But he's got a great team coming back. And these last 2 years were exceptional, except the final games. And last year, Georgia, they were never going to beat them. But this TCU, sticking in everybody's craw. But mostly, I think everybody agrees with 98% of what you're saying, Troy.
Well, he's got a kid coming that might come in, the 5-star Jaden Davis kid. I mean, this kid's going to commit soon, and Michigan's been on him. And Michigan's supposedly the leader for this guy. What's this kid? We can't don't know what an 18-year-old kid thinks. But this kid right here is really, really good. And he could be your 5-star quarterback that takes over when JJ leaves. And it just wears on you and wears on you, Dennis. And it hurts, and it really hurts recruiting because, like you said, you don't know what kids go to school for the coach. They don't go to the school for the school, because when we did my cousin's recruiting, it was more of, we liked the coaches, we wanted to go there. And he ended up going to Michigan and playing for Brady Hope, and he played for Harbaugh. But the whole thing was, it's just kids go to school for the coach because they love the coach. And if I'm a Michigan fan or alumnus, which I am, it comes to a point where it just wears on you. And this is why Jim Harbaugh has a shelf life. It's because he does stuff like this. He's looking for the next opportunity. I said it once and I'll say it again. When he had the good season last year, he was ready to bolt and go to Minnesota. He interviewed on National Signing Day. That tells you right there that he don't have no respect for Michigan, or does he care about those kids that he tells he's going to be there, or any of the coaches that are on the staff. So it blows my mind. This guy has everything going in the right direction. He's making 7.1, 7.2 million. They want to get another deal done, bump it up to 9.5 mil, and be done with it. Let's rock and roll. Just say, I'm not going to do this again. And he said that last year, and he sat there and lied. So I just don't understand how people can take this guy back next year and really be serious.
Well, I think that he's going to have a lot of making up to do, Troy. I mean, what are you going to I haven't actually figured out what he can say to make people feel good about it. What do you think he's going to say? Like, is there anything that he can say to get you back? I mean, if he comes out and say, well, it's just a 2-time thing. I don't. What do guys say when they go back on their word? I'm sorry. Maybe he says he's sorry about doing it. And, he really did love the NFL. He was out of his mind. And what if he says this was all just a ploy to, it was negotiations with his contract. He never had any intentions of going to the end. I don't know. I'm reaching. I don't know
if there's anything you can say, Dennis. I mean, you just saw Kirby Smart when it won back-to-back national championships. You have Nick Saban won a lot of titles. Why aren't their names being popped up for NFL jobs? Because they have no interest in NFL jobs. Jim made it clear after 7 years, I wanted to take a chance on the NFL. He didn't get the job. He said what he said last year. People took him back with open arms, and he sat there, and now he's doing it again. On last Thursday, he put the statement out that, hey, but he gave himself an out with what he said. Those who stay will be champions and all this other stuff. 96 hours later, his name popped up for the Denver Broncos job. You really want to go be the head coach of the Denver Broncos? You don't even have a first round pick, I don't think. No. You got Russell Wilson, who ain't that good. You got Jerry Jeudy. From everything that I read, looks like he wants to get out of town. You don't really have nothing there. And it's like Jim has everything going in the right direction. He has 100% control of that program. One thing that Jim wants is 100% control. No NFL franchise are going to give you that right now. So to me, I just think Michigan fans are tired of it, and I'm tired of it, and it's time to cut ties. Hey Jim, thanks for what you did the last 2 years. Give it to Sharon Moore, Mike Hart. That's rock and roll. Because I think Sharon's ready to be a head coach. The same thing with Mike Hart. Give it to one of them. Whoever doesn't get it, make them an assistant coach or the top assistant or whatever. And let's rock and roll. Let's get another O-line coach or another running back coach. And that's go. Because the longer you wait, the more you hurt recruiting.
You would think so. Troy, I appreciate it. You call anytime. I think I should make sure I have a spaces up there more times than not. And I will do that. And it was good to hear from you, even under these circumstances. Not only does Denver not have a first-round pick this year, they don't have a second-round pick this year. And not only do the Broncos not have a first and second-round pick this year, the Broncos don't have a first and second-round pick next year. And the Denver Broncos are paying Russell Wilson. They gave him an extension for I'll just make it up, but it's probably close to $250 million. There's no way out. You're cooking with Russell Wilson, whether you like it or not. That's your guy. You're going to say, I'm going to let Russell Wilson let it rip. The Denver Broncos job is the worst job in the NFL. And it's not really close. Because they're stuck at quarterback And they don't have first and second round picks for the next 2 years. Oh, they picked one up from the Niners or through the Dolphins when they traded Chubb. So they got a Niners pick? I think that's correct. They did deal Chubb, and they did get a first round pick for him. So they got a late first. Who they taking there? So they do have a first. It's still the worst job in the NFL. Cardinals isn't too hot either, because they're stuck with the gamer, Kyler Murray. They'll take a run at Link because they got to play him for 2 years, and he's out next year after hurting his knee. I hate to admit this, but I'm going to admit it anyways. I picked him in my fantasy league this year. It was a terrible pick. I'm going to admit something else. I came in last place in my fantasy league this year. Dead last. It hurt. I tanked late, to be honest. I traded away in a keeper league 2 of the top because I was fed up. I was on tilt. I still am there. Got to be more even keeled when it comes down to football. It's an emotional game when you're in it. You know what I mean? There we go. Let's take some more feedback. You know, I thought this was going to be a short show. And then yet here we are. There's just too much Michigan stuff to talk about. When Michigan makes news, we talk about it. We write about it on the Maize and Blue Review. We go back and forth on the Maize and Blue Review on the Den. And then we talk about it 1 o'clock here on Good Afternoon Michigan Football. Coming up tomorrow, we'll have former Wolverine Jim Scarcelli. I'll be bringing some video to the table, breaking some things down. We'll get his thoughts on this situation. Thursday, Michigan basketball's back in action. We'll be talking about them as well. But right now, it's about the wandering eyes of Coach Harbaugh. Steve on the feedback says, would Denver really take Harbaugh over Sean Payton? No, I don't think so. I think the list of coaches out there, I think Sean Payton is number 1. The only thing with Denver is you got to give up compensation to get Payton because he's under contract with the Saints. But Sean Payton's not taking the Denver gig right now. Sean Payton is going to be watching this super wild card weekend with great interest. If on Saturday, the Chargers, with their coach who put 2 of their starters out there and got them hurt, Mike Williams being one, and they get blown out by Jacksonville, the Chargers might fire Staley. Could happen. And they'll take Sean Payton. He wants to be in L.A. You want to be with Justin Herbert and the Chargers? Or you want to go to the worst job in the NFL in Mile High? Easy decision. But he's not done there. Sean Payton made his name for himself in the NFL in Dallas with the Cowboys. The Cowboys last week played their starters and looked terrible. And losing to the Commanders. If the Dallas Cowboys go to Tampa on Monday night and lose the game against Tom Brady and the Bucs, Mike McCarthy is going to get fired. And Sean Payton would like that Dallas job. Dallas? LA Chargers? Broncos. And what job do you want? I mean, so no, they're not taking Harbaugh over Payton. You know, I've seen some of the other names there for Denver. And some of the guys, sure enough, like if you haven't had a job before, it is one of 32. It pays pretty well, that kind of thing. But also, it is the worst job, I think, ever in the history of the NFL, considering who you're stuck with at quarterback and where the picks are at. I don't know. Maybe you could come up with a word. Maybe there's some of the expansion teams that are getting in there. But didn't they have their first round picks? So maybe you can make a case. You telling me you'd rather have the Texans job than the Broncos job? Yes. I am telling you that. I'm telling you that the Texans should have lost that game. But let's take some more feedback. So I was good to see Mark in here. He was a little skeptical yesterday about Jim Harbaugh. And I think we all understood why. Mr. Martini is saying those who stay will beat Ryan Day. Telling Russell Wilson not to cook would be hilarious. That's why Russell Wilson left Pete Carroll. He wanted to throw the rock. Yeah. Maybe they're selling him on, hey, Javonte Williams, who tore up his knee, is going to be ready mid-season, and you can start running the ball all the time with him, Harbaugh. I mean, there's not a lot of bright spots there. Judy is a bright spot. He's their best player. Missed opportunity or blessing. Mark, going back to last night, says no one would have beat Georgia. Some low-level NFL teams would have had a struggle. Yeah, would Russ have been able to run around there and make a bunch of plays? Uh-oh, we're getting philosophical now. Is life all about the money now? Not for me. Richard, it's nice to say, but most people, it's about money. And if it's not about the money, the money brings you a lot of different things. Mostly, yes. My thought is he wants to see what the NFL will offer him, and then he has leverage to ask for Michigan for that. Yeah, well, you get a little bit too cute in the negotiations. He's got everything. There is the part about it that, Ward could be over here, and because it's Michigan, he's got to feel like he's got to come away with a win, or everybody's going to look at him as some kind of puppet or something. But when you make it get to this point, and the sticking point could have, and if you've been following along in the Maize and Blue review, it sounds like that the buyout was a sticking point. But I got to tell Jim Harbaugh, when it comes to the buyout, because there's one side of me that just says, give him whatever he wants and let's go. Give him a small buyout. And it was just about getting him back. He's a top 5 coach. But then the part about we don't know if his, flirting with the NFL is, hurting recruiting. If he has this little small buyout, how can it not hurt recruiting? If I'm a recruit and I'm down to Clemson and I'm down to Michigan, and Dabo says, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. I promise you. And Jim Harbaugh says, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. I promise you. Dabo's going to say, ask him what his buyout is. Ask him what he was, and then let's tell him to ask a couple more questions. But just with the buyout, even if he's able to come back and somehow twist this where it was a negotiation and he's back with the Maize and Blue, ready to go. I don't know, that he was with all this enthusiasm unknown to mankind. I mean, all that's not sounding really good right now. A low-level NFL team would destroy Georgia, Mark. For this particular argument, Account 22, mostly you're right with this. But some of these NFL teams, it would be a depth thing, but the gap has closed significantly as well. That's a fact. That's never going to happen. So, but everybody, the ones that like to tell you this, it's close. Would I rather have the Denver Broncos right now, or I could have the 4 teams that were in the college semifinal as a pool to pick from, and heading in as an expansion team. I would take the 4 teams over the Broncos, and I think next year I could beat them. Now that's 4 teams, that's just not 1. So that might hurt your. You might not like that argument at count 22, but it's closer than it used to be. AJ says he thinks TCU played over their heads against Michigan. Yeah. I think they did too. I think Michigan helped them, with some early success. Not punching it in. They made a play. You can't say, well, a pick 6. Those are big plays. 2 big 6s are big plays. Not many teams are going to come back just on that. They're not coming back. But then Michigan's defense was able to get a couple. TCU had 3 turnovers. The maddening thing about that game is that with everything that happened, if DJ Turner makes a tackle on that 3rd and 7, I think Michigan's going to win that game. I think that if Michigan gets a stop late in that game after they punted the ball or kicked it off, down to the 10-yard line and had all 3 of their timeouts, they stopped them on 1st down for 2 yards, but they gave up 7 yards on that 2nd down. If they would have stopped them for just like 2-3 yards on that 2nd down, I think Michigan would have won the game there. They gave up 7 yards, and it was a 3rd and 1. TCU got a 1st down, and Michigan, a lot of chances. I'm tired of talking about that game. These funny propositions. Funny how? Funny like it's a little bit closer now. You always have the pro people and everybody else like, Jacob, with the question of the day, is Jim leaving? Well, Jacob, let's just go ahead and ask everybody that's out there. Is Jim Harbaugh leaving? You guys are listening. What do you think? I'll answer it like this. He wants to leave. He's trying to leave. He's interviewing for NFL jobs. It's clear that he wants an NFL job. So is he leaving? If an NFL team will take him, he will accept the position and he will be gone. That's what it's coming down to. There's a lot of NFL openings out there. Well, one of these other teams want Harbaugh. Maybe. So that's the tough part. He's leaving. He wants an NFL. I don't want to say he doesn't want to be here because I think he will come back to Michigan if the NFL teams are like, sorry. It's a fallback job for him right now. A pretty good one. He might be just sitting there thinking, look at me. Look at the enthusiasm that I bring. I can try to get an NFL job. Or if it doesn't work out, I'll just walk back to Michigan, get a brand new spanking contract, and come in with a top 2 team for next year. How you like me? Who's got it better than me? He might be telling his wife, who's got it better than us? I think Sarah's like, I don't want to go to Denver. I don't think she's saying that. Jacob's asking the tough questions. I don't have an answer for this one either, Jacob. You're asking too hard of questions. Stetson Bennett. Let's see. Andre saying that Jenkins graded out in a top 100. Yeah, well, maybe that's why he's going or thinking about it. Michael says, gotta back on track time for me to get a Super Bowl ring. It's not about the money. It's about my brother having a ring. Wait. I think that's, you'd have to clear that up a little bit. I probably could do it. I just want to get some of the last ones up here. Sometimes I see these and I don't really get it. I don't like this one. particularly right here. Baby, it's time. Bronco Nation, let's ride. No, Michigan fans are having a hard time with that TCU loss. Michigan fans are having a hard time with their coach interviewing with the Broncos. Those things are all true. Hey, let's see. I think we can all agree on that. Okay, Urban Meyer's name keeps popping up left and right. I'm trying to get down here. People continue talking about. We will talk about TCU. Burn the film. No natties in Ann Arbor. That was the thing about this year, Todd. You know, most of the time I was agreeing with that. Like last year at this time, like, yeah, you're never going to beat Georgia. And then, yeah, you watched Georgia last night, but you get one game, one shot. I didn't think that, and it's changed now because I don't know, TCU played so well on defense and offense against Michigan, and Michigan's offensive line and defensive line, I don't really get it. But I thought that if Michigan played TCU 10 times, that Michigan would win that game 6 or 7 times, 6.5 times. And then I was going to use the exact same theory or probability with Michigan against Georgia. That if Michigan played Georgia, Georgia would win the game 6 or 7 times. Now, I would adjust those numbers. I would kick that up a little bit. The way the Georgia looked last night, probably talk about that was 7 or 8 times. 7.5 times. 75% of the time, if Michigan played Georgia, they would lose. And I think Ohio State, it was kind of the same thing. And then look at, there was Ohio State with that 25% or that one time out of 10, and it happened. So that's how I was looking at it. Well, we could sit here for the next 2 hours if we wanted to talk about Jim Harbaugh. And let's just take 3 more. Blank says, the big play in that game not being talked about was Mazi Smith non-sack play where he inexplicably stopped running. It was 3rd down. A sack would have gotten him off the field. They went on to score a TD. You know, he was pouring in after him. I don't remember about him inexplicably stop running, but I'll buy blank what you're saying. I believe it. Michael, no, not at all. Win a couple Big Ten championships, then it's all about natties. Those bigs mean little. You know, the Big Ten champions, those are nice. We'll get to the last one here. Big Ten championships are nice. Beating Ohio State, like, you know, but I want more. You always want more. Am I going to sit here and just say, no, just beat Ohio State, that's fine. They lose to TCU or whoever else. No. They had a great opportunity this year and they kicked it. And it's gonna stay with me for the rest of my life, just like you. So let's not sit around and talk about, well, just resign. Here's the thing, like Ohio State came that close to winning a national championship because if they beat Georgia, they would have beat TCU. And I think Michigan would have beat. So all of this, like Michigan can never win a national championship. Are you kidding? You know, things, and that's the kicker. Is it lined up? The stars did align for Michigan this year. They should have beat TCU, and Ohio State should have beat Georgia, and Michigan could have won the national championship. And instead, Michigan played their worst game of the year at the worst time in the college football playoff. And then Ohio State lost that game, and now Michigan's going to lose their coach to the Denver frickin' Broncos. I mean, that's tough to take. But Account 22 asked the question, do I really think Jim leaves after what Blake did yesterday? Well, what's he interviewing for? Account 22? He's just laughing around. I'm just interviewing. I'm just interviewing so I'll lose my credibility. I don't know. I'm giggling now. I'll just interview to lose my credibility with, all my fan base. and with high school players across the nation. That's why I'll interview. I'll go back on my word because, that's just what just for fun. I'll interview for the worst job in the NFL ever just to ruin my reputation. It all sounds kind of crazy because it is. Coming up tomorrow, Jim Scarcelli, the former Wolverine, will join us. Thanks for joining us here. We'll